Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome everyone for today's panel with Center for Relational Studies on the Global Crisis and Chiba University. My name is Keiko Sakai, a dean of this center and the organizer of this panel. Today's panel is entitled the 2019 Iraqi Protest, 1 year on, Facts, Aims, and Prospect. I am delighted to be a host and chair of this panel. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. This panel is a part of the online event in our project, Relational Studies on the Global Crisis, establishing the new paradigm of the social human sciences based on the relational studies. This event will be held on record and currently being recorded. Each presentation will be given either in English or Arabic, and it will be followed by a short translation after a full presentation. We will be taking questions from the audience in Q&A function in Zoom. I encourage you to send us your question early on, either in English or Arabic, in order that we have enough time to read and choose them. Today, I'm particularly delighted to introduce today's three speakers very briefly. Zahra Ali, Assistant Professor at Department of the Sociology and Anthropology and Women's and Gender Studies Program at Rutgers University Network. She is the author of the wonderful book of Women and Gender Studies, Women and Gender in Iraq, Between Nation Building and Fragmentation, published in 2018 from Cambridge University Press. Is it right? Okay. She is one of the leading figures as a prominent sociologist on the current protest movement in Iraq and active in writing many articles on it. Second speaker is Ali Tahel Al-Hamoud, an assistant professor on political sociology at Baghdad University. Hello, Ali. He conducts a number of important researches on Shiite political Islam and the ethnicities and minority in Iraq. He has written a lot of articles in the web magazine, Al-Monitor, mainly focusing on the secularism, sectarianism, and civil society in Iraq. And the third speaker is Ala Hamid Idris, who works as an editor of Iraqi Media Network and Al-Shabaka magazine. He is also head of the Department of Research and Study at Luwak Baghdad Research Center for Public Policy. He received a PhD degree of anthropology from Iskandariya University on the integration and the differentiation of the ethnic group in Iraq. Both Ali and Ala will give their presentation in Arabic, and Khalid al-Hilli from Graduate Center of City University of New York will translate them into English. So Khalid worked very hard to translate all the conversation from English to Arabic and Arabic to English. Khalid, could you briefly translate what I mentioned just now to the audience, please, in Arabic?
بالعربي.
Yeah.
يعني تعرفنا على المقدمين، الدكتور علاء حميد إدريس، علي الحمود، وزهراء علي، التقديم راح يكون حسب زهراء will start will زهراء be the first one? Yeah. وأنا راح أقوم بعملية الترجمة من العربي للإنجليزي، وراح يكون في مجال لطرح الأسئلة بالعربي سأقوم بترجمتها للغة الإنجليزية للمقدمين، وهذه هي.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I ask Zahra to start, let me briefly explain the aim of this panel. On 1st of October 2019, a number of Iraqi civil activists launched a mass protest movement at the Tahrir Square in Baghdad, denouncing the regime's corruption and its inability to provide basic social services. Protest movement quickly spread to the various governorates, mainly in the south, and were faced with a brutal oppression from the regime security forces. Militarization of the regime evoked a strong anger among the ordinary Iraqi people, and more youth joined the protest. Despite the call from the religious marja'iyya to stop attacking the protesters, the promise of the academy administration to investigate the violent acts of the militia, the number of protesters suffer from the state violence, especially in the late August last month. There's a number of activists were killed and assassinated. The mass protest until the end of July, 560 protesters were reported to be killed, and the number continued to rise. This mass protest is significantly important, not only for Iraq, but also for the ongoing global protest movement in general. Here, I can point out 7 important aspects that shows the innovativeness of the movement. First is the size, the country-wideness, and the time length of the protest movement. More than 1 million gathered at the Tahrir Square, and the movement synchronized in Basra, Najaf, and Karbala, and other major cities in the south. We never saw such mass movement lasting more than a year in the past half a century in Iraq. Second, most of the protesters are ordinary citizens who voluntarily joined the movement, not prompted by the organizational political mobilization, nor by the military operation. Their anger is simply directed to the existing political elites and shows deep disappointment with the post-2003 electoral and party politics. The third, the most of them are youth, which represent majority of the Iraqi population. It is worth noticing that not a small number of the teenagers joined the movement who have never experienced the previous regime. For them, it is not a matter of comparison whether the current regime is relatively better than the one before 2003 or not. The fourth, a considerable number of the women are active in the protest. It is amazing that female activists are not hesitant despite of the targeting, killing, abduction, and intimidation by the security forces. Saba Mahdawi last year and Riham Yacobi last month are among them. Fifth, the protesters maintain autonomous public space in their liberated area and developed a strong sense of self-reliance among them. What they develop is something similar to the Paris Commune in 1871, which was governed by ordinary people and workers. Sixth, less religious atmosphere among the protesters shows a new phase of the depoliticization of the religion. This also hints the future role of the religious authority in the protest society. Seventh, the protesters search for the new type of nationalism based on the civil society. This should not be reduced to the anti-Iranian or anti-US tendency, but should be understood in the broader context. The protest movement may offer the best opportunity to the Iraqis to overcome sectarian and ethnic hatred and free themselves from the futile competition for being victimhood. The memory of having participated in the mass movement will leave the sense of the civic nationalism in the future. In the light of the above features, protests that started in Iraq last year can be considered as a grave turning point for the post-2003 Iraqi politics. Here in this webinar, we will examine what happened during the protest movement and what is happening now and what will happen from now. Thank you very much. Actually, I have an Arabic translation of my introductory note, so I will a little bit later on, I will put this Arabic translation in the chat corner for all of the audience.